gonna go get the truck. I'm giving commentary. So I hear him getting in the truck. The truck is gonna pull the other truck. Cause one truck is drivable and the other one is not. Here comes the first truck. That is a huge truck. And then the second truck. Oh. Oh, okay. Not quite yet. Have to do a little maneuvering. Small spaces and big vehicles. And drive it up on the side of the yard. Hitting the leaves. That is a much smaller truck. It's a nice looking truck. It looks teeny weeny compared to the other one. It's a teeny weeny truck. It looks like a toy truck.
Do you notice this?
What year did they add that on?
In 1994.
It's my favorite part, honestly.
This is the only rust hole.
The only one?
So this is a 1998. The guy put lowering blocks on it and lowering springs on it, and he took all the trim off it, painted it.
What color was it before? The same color?
Same color. And put it in the woods. Or I think he just left it on the farm, but it ended up being taken over by the woods with all these other cars, and all these other cars rotted out. And this one didn't. It's completely rust-free. Like, this is all metal. These trucks don't survive at all.
What's the inside look like?
What's that?
Front is looking a little...
He had
Poor grill.
Another S10 there. And
Yeah.
I got the grill off it.
Oh, okay.
And the taillights. It's dirty. And I have the door panel for the...
Okay. It's very dirty.
Very dirty.
Missing a door panel.
Get up in there.
Smells dirty.
It's musty, but it's not disgusting.
I'm gonna die up here. Okay.
So look at the fancy seats.
Those are fancy.
Truck.
Is that what it says?
Yes. On the door panel too.
Just in case it wasn't clear.
Right. So this is an 88 S10 Sport, right?
Yeah.
Sport. So basically the Sport, you got the interior, which came with like the Sport wheel and, you know, the seats and the console thing and all this stuff. And when I read it's called the SPID, so it has all the little codes there, what the truck came with. So when I looked them all up, one of the codes is ZQ8. I had a ZQ8, it was like a 2000 something GMC ZQ8, which is like sport suspension, so it drives like a car.
Mm-hmm.
So this has got to be one of the earlier ZQ8s, and the Sport came with the ZQ8 suspension and, like I said, the bucket seats and some other stuff. This thing has like all the gauges. It has the tachometer. It came with 15-inch wheels, which obviously aren't on this, but the next day I looked on Facebook Marketplace and I found 15-inch wheels with brand new tires.
What year was your old truck again?
Early 2000s.
It reminds me of it a little bit.
So this has the sliding window. Like everything on here is an option. Like it wasn't added on. The Sport had like rubber molding here and plastic things around here. You can still see the holes.
Yeah.
But they weren't with the truck, and I don't really care. So it's a V6 5-speed. It's got a 373 rear in it. It also has the sport mirrors, so they're like tiny.
Yeah.
Like giant truck mirrors. But I didn't even notice it when I bought it. I mean, it's got power brakes, steering, but it has air conditioning.
What? That's a first.
That's a first. And in this little tiny truck, get that AC working, it'll be frigid in there. But it's all here. Like, even the battery tray isn't rusted. Like, everything is just, I can't believe it. These S10s like rot away completely. The other side, the emblem's missing, and I cannot find that anywhere online. I haven't asked like an S10 like guy who had this like S10 parts. And he's like, I've never seen an S10 Sport.
At least you have one.
So I was at Cars and Coffee, and I said to my friend, I saw this thing on Facebook where this guy was dragging cars out of a farm, out of the woods, and I saw a couple old Mopars, and I'm like, hey, some of them are like 58, 960s, maybe I can get a couple parts for that Coronet. And then when I was leaving, I thought someone had driven this there. It was like behind his tractor.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed the plate there was no plate, and I said, what about that? And then here it is.
Just like that. It's pretty solid.
It's completely solid. I mean, look at this. Even the rockers, I mean, underneath it, I was like crawling under it, trying to get under it when I was looking at it. I couldn't find any rust. This is unheard of. I mean, the pinch here where the door panel, the door skin goes over the door, right? This always rusts. It just always rusts. Water gets down in here, and then it gets down inside here, and just rots this out, and there's nothing wrong with it. You can see the inspection sticker over there. It's 94, right?
Do you see it? I think I see it.
So that means this sat for it sat for
20 years. 30 years.
30 years.
It's a long time.
I think that Coronet sat for 30 years. 5-speed Gold V6. It's gonna be a lot of fun. And you can drive it, right?
Yeah.
You put the seat all the way up or as far up as you want. Power steering, power brakes. I already tested the clutch. It's hydraulic, so it's easy to push. You know, it's not like the old cars where it's like a struggle.
Any closing remarks?
See you at the car wash.
We are at the car wash, and we are gonna, guess what? Wash a car. A truck. This is a truck wash. This truck needs a wash probably also, but not the area of focus.
Watch out.
Ah! Watch out where?
You don't want to be around for this.
What?
You don't want to be around for this part.
I need to like hide.
Large pieces of food right there.
Lovely. Oh my god. I thought that was gonna start moving. Well, it did kind of. Where am I supposed to go? How am I supposed to get the angle? Hitting me from all the way back here. He does not like the car wash system. It smells really atrocious.
Well, I have the poop out of it.
That is a good thing.
Yeah, I didn't want giant pieces of feces all over the driveway.
Oh, you didn't?
No, that's
So who's gonna have to pick this up?
not us. That's why I paid the $20 to get it done here.
Yeah, it smells fabulous. Okay, cut.
This little truck cleaned up pretty nice. I mean, it's still filthy, but I got the big chunks of dirt off it. It had a lot of animal stuff in it. That was really what I was concerned about. There were large chunks of you-know-what in here, stuck in various places. It's still got a lot of dirt behind the hinges there. But it's enough where I can get in here and not, you know, get disgusting. I noticed some areas where I think when they pulled it out of the weeds, out of the trees, it got dented up. I mean, some of this might have been from branches just like blown in the wind over time. This driver's side fender, that's kind of what this looks like to me. Like something was rubbing against it as it grew over the 30 years it sat in the woods. So the interior's still pretty gross. I cleaned the wheel up because I had to take it all apart and have a key made. The bed, I just don't understand it. It was probably 4, 5, 6 inches full of actual dirt, like really good soil, and then sticks and everything else on top of it. And there's some large rusticles, but they come off. And it's not through. I can't find anywhere where it's, you know, through rust. I just don't get it. The bed's nice and straight on the back here. I'll probably have to take the bumper off to get that off. This is the really only rust spot in it. So the day after I got this, I immediately went on Marketplace and started looking for rims and tires. And I came up with these. So these are 15s, 215, 65, 15 tires. These are brand spanking new. I mean, they still have all the nubs on them, every single one of them. These have never been used. So no trim rings, no center caps, but I don't really care. I just wanted something to get on this so I could, you know, move it around and get it running. So this truck originally came with the 215 65R 15s. And currently on it now, what I thought there were 4 14-inch rims, but this one is 15. And it's the same 215 65R 15, but my understanding is this truck being the Sport, although it came with 15-inch rims, it would have come with a Sport rim, and this is a 14. So I'm not sure if the 15 was the same, just bigger. You know, same center cap, not sure. But these are so dry rotted, and I really want to get a look at it sitting on fully inflated 15-inch tires and see how well it sits, because right now it's lower in the rear than it is in the front, and it kind of looks ridiculous. So let's get to it. Curious to see what the brakes look like. See if this drum will come off. Kind of what I suspected. Those look like brand new shoes and hardware. I don't see any leaks, but there may not be any fluid in it at all. I haven't even checked it. Oh, that e-brake cable looks new too. Yeah, somebody spent some money on this thing and then just let it sit. I mean, that was the story I was told, and it's starting to look like it's not a lie. The sheet metal on this thing is like perfect. Oh, for the rust belt. So this did have the ZQ8 suspension, but somebody definitely added a block or two. Okay, let's stick to the plan here and get these wheels on. This thing was definitely down in the dirt. I mean, just sunk in the mud. it's sunk in the mud kind of stuff there. But I don't get why it's not just completely rotted out. At first I thought maybe it sat inside for a while, but all the evidence points to it was in the dirt outside in the weeds. That might be too low in the back or just perfect. Let's get the front tires on. It's been on there a while. Lots of rust. It doesn't look as new as the rear, but those pads got a lot of meat on them. That's in a couple miles wouldn't resolve, right? The price rotors and calipers, pads. Might be worth it just to replace them and replace the rear wheel cylinders. Brakes later. Stick to the task in hand. The goal is to have the kid drive this so she can really get used to a manual. Not that she hasn't driven a big block 4-speed before, but something to drive around on a regular basis. A little more leverage. Beautiful. Other side. So I'll probably say this 100 times, but I had an 85 S15 GMC, and it had these wheels when I got it, and it was a 350. Someone had done a swap, and I promptly got rid of them. And I bought those Chevy Rallies, and it was red with black scallops, and I had red 15-inch on the rear, and I found somehow 14-inch for the front, painted them black. For some reason, the 14s were different. I don't know if they were width-wise different, but they looked different. Lots and lots of dirt and sticks. I only have sticks. The guy I bought these from spray painted one of these silver. Wish he didn't. Kind of like the rusty crusty look better. I might do center caps, no trim rings. Like clean these up, paint them the silver, put center caps on them, and call it a day. All the trim rings do is scratch the rims and hold garbage. These valve stems are definitely for trim rings though. It looks much better already. I'm not sure if these springs should look like that. Are there like too many lowering blocks on it where it's like spreading apart? I'm not really too familiar with the lowering blocks. Classic Vine. I'm digging it. This is a truck, if you didn't know it. Still looks cool though. Dirt and all. I'm gonna get into this engine, pull the plugs, and try to get it running and all that. But first I'm gonna finish up some of the cleaning. This stuff was just bothering me, stuck up under the cowl. And I noticed that the wiper squirter thing is broken, so I can add it to the list of things I need to order. And I wanted to check out the windshield and make sure it was just the windshield that was getting water wicked up into it, and it wasn't rusting out the cowl, which doesn't appear to have done that. I didn't realize this just popped out once I took the cowl off, but this is what I was concerned about. One was the windshield, and it doesn't appear that water got into the cabin. This isn't rusted. It just got in between the layers of the windshield. But then there's this mess. That is what I was looking for. That is just a huge pile of dirt. I'm glad it's just dirt. But I'm not sure where this drains, so I wasn't gonna run it until it just, you know, clogged something up. So I'll have to figure that out. Probably let it dry and vacuum it out, and then see if the rest will just flow out the bottom near the fenders or wherever this stuff goes. So that's the pile that came out of the cowl. It's mostly the hood pad. I imagine it was a rodent that did that, but I didn't see a lot of rodent stuff. There's a nut or two in there, but it wasn't totally gross. This old cheapo pressure washer worked a lot better than the, you know, commercial car wash thing. Plus, I have hot water. It got all the lichen and algae stuff off. It even got the hood clean. So, once again, not trying to clean it. Just trying to get the filth off. Got all the mud out from underneath it. And now we can move on to getting it running. So I really took a chance when I bought this. I think I checked the antifreeze. And that's about it. There's antifreeze on the cap. I don't think I've ever seen that before. What is that, like calcium or something? But there is fluid down there, about halfway. I noticed the shroud is broken, so this would be holding it. It's pretty well chipped up, but the fan is clear. Let's check the oil. There's oil in it. Usually when it's too full, that means there's water in it, but we'll find out. I didn't even check to see if this was fuel injected, but I just assumed it was. Pretty sure it's the throttle body. I think by 88 they were doing fuel injection. Yep. Something's been storing stuff in there. So some mousage in the air cleaner, but not past the air filter. Lots of connectors and sensors and wires and these plastic vacuum lines that inevitably crack and break, and so I guess it's time to pull the plugs and see what we got. I have never seen plugs that far down in on the head. They are way in there. There's the oil filter. I'm learning stuff every day. I don't know what size plug. There we go. I'm no stranger to these trucks, but I'm a stranger to this computer controlled. I had it, like I said, I had an 85, but I had a 350 in it, a 4-barrel. It was a completely different animal. Not rusted. Of course, the outside is. Not terrible. Not terrible. The plug looks good, but the plug looks bad. I couldn't even get this socket on it. It was rusted. There's definitely water sitting in the hole there, but didn't get into the cylinder. Next. Acceptable. Last one. I do see some rust on the end here. That's not a good sign. Good news on the plugs, bad news on the throttle body. It is stuck. Not sure why. I don't think it's the cable. It's obviously moisture related, but this thing is stuck. There's some movement. Okay, that's workable. Alright, let's see if this thing has water, oil, or both. Place your bets. Oil. This thing is incredibly solid for a rust belt truck. I mean, look at that floorboard. That is unheard of in these parts. And although I sprayed all the dirt I could out of the undercarriage here, there's a lot. You can see it way back there in the frame. But the frame's not rotted. There's some stuff hanging down. Not sure what that is. Oh, it's a stick. Pulling lots of vines and sticks out. So up under here is where all that crud is. There's that stick. There's a lot of stuff. Up in here. I'm supposed to be getting this running right now. Imagine a lot of this will come out down the road over time. But we're here. So might as well get sidetracked and get out as much as possible. Get some good farm dirt right there. I cannot believe this. I mean, it's wet up under here. I can't believe it's not completely rotted away. This whole frame is just solid. I don't get it. I guess if you don't drive these Chevy trucks, they don't rot out. So that's the problem. Don't drive them. This is how my Sierra rotted out. There's no holes in the bottom frame. It was a box. There were just holes on the sides. So it just filled with garbage and rotted away. The other side is free and clear. Look at that. It's a Super Sport. Okay, enough fooling around. Back to work. Apparently everything on this is metric. And the crank bolt's 18 millimeters and my shallow 18 millimeter is busted. So we're going to try it with the longer socket and just see if it'll turn by hand. I think it's in gear and it just turned. Oh yeah. Yep, it turns. I'm going to try to go around a couple times. Like butter. So I'm tempted just to throw the plugs in and see if this will fire. What do I got to lose? It could be, you know, any number of sensors or relays or connections that prevent it from starting, but then again, it could just start right up. Stranger things have happened. Alright, let's throw a battery in it. Okay, I lied. I'm first gonna try to see if I can get to this distributor and see what kind of shape it's in. Abort! Abort! I think it's gonna crack the cap or something stupid. Oh, okay. Nice. I made it nice and loose. Does GM always shove the radiator? Why does GM always shove the distributor all the way up against the firewall to the point where they have to have like a cutout for it and then you can't get to it or do anything to it? Ridiculous. Get you back to your home. I don't have a battery that's side terminal. I don't even have one that's side and top, like a combo one. These are rusted to heck, but I'm just gonna make an attempt here. I have this car sitting here with a battery that's fully charged. Let's see if we can get this rusty connection to work. See if we can get some power to this thing. I had one new terminal and now I have flashers, question mark, and one headlight. The flasher switch must be on. And there's that beautiful sound. That's hurting. Yeah, I'm not gonna have enough juice to start it. I gotta get me an electrical diagram for this. I noticed there's some wires here just snipped off. I don't want to just throw parts at it, but I'm definitely gonna have to get a battery because it needs a battery anyway. And then we'll see if the starter will crank. I put the battery in and I have lights, that's about it. So I'm checking the fuse box. All the fuses are good, but I see ECM1 is empty and it's a 10 amp. So I don't know if this truck needs ECM1. I ordered the GM like repair manuals and electrical manual. Got them on eBay. They're on their way, but I got a 10 amp. Let's see what that does. Okay, I'm an idiot. I was thinking maybe I have to push the clutch in. Maybe there's some kind of safety thing, even though it's in neutral. And the starter's clicking. So that's a good sign. Still don't hear the fuel pump coming on though. Of course, this buzzer isn't helping any. Does it ever go off? Okay, let me get some gas. We got air, we got spark. We got no fuel pump. I'll give it a little more fuel, but I don't want to drown it out. Got spark, got gas, got air. It's cranking. It's not seeing something or sensing something. Somebody get me a manual. I know it's a YouTube sin to clean the vehicle before you get it running, but in this case, it's only going to be warm for a couple days for the next like week or two, and I really want to pull this carpet and hit it with the pressure washer and probably the door panels as well. I think I'm going to spend my time doing that. On a side note, when I bought the new battery, I bought new battery bolts. Yep, they've been there the whole time. Time to give this a quick cleanup. So I'll be replacing all the rubber, weather strip, all that stuff. So we'll just get it out of the way. I think this is one side of the rain guard, but the other one is in here. These, of course, we covered. I need these, or needed them. What's that, a mini greenhouse? Won't be needing that. Plastic ashtray. Brace for something, probably under the dash. Center cap for a wheel I'll never use. There's a ton of these plastic fender and splash shield rivets for Ford products. There's a couple bags that were chewed up. Got my old Salem Black Label. Fancy. Look at that. It's like a 2-part box. Bomba di Gasolina. Oh, nice bracket. Rusted to the floor mat. So this would be for the jack. I don't know what this is. That is indeed the jacking instructions. 2-sided. And it's got this tether on it. Like a rubber hose. I don't understand. E6. So I had seen pictures of S10s with this emblem on the front fender. It was right about here. I don't know if this came with this. It doesn't have studs. Well, no, it did have a stud. I think this fender may have been replaced, but I'm guessing this wasn't on this. This fender is legit the original and there's no holes. But that is, I believe, S10, early S10 square body V6 emblem. Sugar! This was wet when I picked it up, and it hasn't dried. And I've aired it out multiple times, so I might have to pull this up. Alright, let's pop the seat out. And use an impact on the rear bolts, or nuts. Oh, it's stuck to the floor. This truck keeps giving me money. Okay, I know I gotta take the seatbelts out to get this carpet out completely, but I want to see what's under here. It's soaking wet. It doesn't look terrible. That's where most of the moisture is too. I might as well go all the way because it's just not drying out, and we are scheduled to have nothing but rain and misery for the next week or so. So let's get this out of here. The struggle continues. So I couldn't get this rear bolt off, and I tried everything. I tried the whole hammer smaller size socket on it, you know, impact, put vice grips on it and tighten them with another pair of vice grips, and nothing was working. So what I ended up doing was drilling a hole in it, and then I took a chisel and hammer and just beat it on the hole on the side here until it started spinning, and then the vice grips did the rest. It's time to get this seat out and then finally pull the carpet. I did realize, thank God, that the seat belts, I couldn't get the bolts out, but they're not under the carpet. So this should go fairly easy. think I've decided I'm not keeping this carpet. I was gonna try to take it out, pressure wash it, and salvage it, and then clean it, and I don't know if I have the energy or if I care to. I think I'm just gonna cut from the seat bolt to the seat belt to get this out of here and probably toss it. It's looking pretty sorry underneath. It's wet here in the back. I think this window is definitely leaking. I mean, it can probably only take so much weather before it gets destroyed. Oh, what do you know? Look at that, rust. That's surprising. I didn't see that from underneath. That is drenched in water. So I'm definitely glad I ripped this carpet out. It was completely disgusting and soaking wet all along the back, all on the driver's side, and right here. And this is the only spot that you could feel it where it was wet. That's the extent of the rust. Here's the aftermath. It's not even, it wasn't worth cleaning. It would have taken me days, and it's just so soaking wet and gross and nasty. This is the driver's side. This thing's completely soaked, and I ripped out some of the firewall insulation because it was starting to fall apart. The driver's seat turned out really well just with a shop vac, so I will definitely clean this better, but not today. Passenger seat, not so much. It's got a lot of staining in it, but we'll try to get that out. So I'm going to throw the seats back in, call it a day, and we'll get back on this when I get my parts that are coming in to hopefully get this thing running. I got my box of parts, I got the plugs, and I think that was the issue because I caught this one. I had it just sitting here checking for spark, and I caught it sparking out from here. So that tells me that not a lot of spark is making it to the actual plug, and I'm probably losing some compression. Okay, so I'm gonna get the plugs in, and of course I ordered 8 because that's just how my brain is working and I'm an idiot. And we'll just shoot some gas down it and see if it runs. Quite the contrast in plugs here. That ought to help it run. And I checked online for spark plug gap, and I got everything from 3.5 to 4.5, and some even said I just take them out of the box like GM does and put them in. So then I realized it's right here. Spark plug gap. Automatic manual, 0.045. We'll stab this last one in, shoot some gas down the throttle body. I just want to hear it fire off. Double check the firing order. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Not hard to remember. It's just that the number 1 cylinder's on the passenger side. A little bit of gas. Fingers crossed. I'm guessing this thing needs to see fuel pressure or something like that. It has oil pressure. The in-tank pump definitely isn't coming on, so I don't have a manual. Online's a joke when you're trying to search for these early S10s. I don't know why. So I got the tank, got the sending unit and pump. I'm just going to pull the bed, replace that, and then I definitely have fuel pressure, and we'll see what happens then. I got a new gas tank. It's a 20-gallon tank. I'm not sure what tank this has. This will either have the 13 or the 20, but it's dented underneath from when they dragged it out of the woods. I don't know the condition. And this was the last Spectra tank that Rock Auto had. It was 60 bucks. And I actually have a Spectra tank in the Dart, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's a nice tank. It was well made. It fit perfect. So I have high hopes for this one. To remove this bed, you have to unplug the harness for the taillights. There's a ground wire with a 13mm bolt that's bolted to the frame. And then there's these 15mm bolts. There's 6 of them, 3 on each side. One there, and one there. Now there is a mount here, but in all the videos I've seen and pictures, there's never a bolt there. That must be for something else, or GM was saving money. This one I can get with my impact gun. Comes right out, no problem. This one you can get with the impact because there's a hole in the frame in the bottom. But on the rear one you can't. So I think in later years they added a hole here, and then you just undo these 3 bolts to release the filler neck, and the bed's supposed to come right off, in theory. So I'm also going to take the taillights out because the harness is messed up. It doesn't have the license plate light attached to it. I got to replace that one anyway. And then this will finally come off. I was going to leave it as kind of like a joke, like to kind of prove it sat for so long, but it messes with the bed coming up and down, and this truck deserves better. So I'm going to suffer some more. I don't think I can pull this off myself, so I'll try to phone a friend. If not, I guess the struggle will continue. By the way, I lied. That was just 2 bolts. At the least, I'm going to see if I can pull this vine out of here. Oh, that's lighter than I thought. It's grown into the bumper a little. There's a lip here that goes down, and this thing is wrapped right around it. That was on there for a little bit. This had like a little lip here up around it. Good news. Now the tailgate will go down. Of course, I'm taking the bed off, so it doesn't matter. I'm gonna try and get this off by myself. So as I ponder taking that bed off and how and who and when and all that, I decided to remove the headliner because it was falling apart, and this rear carpeted panel. Now the rear carpeted panel is in very nice shape. Even the back of it. I mean, it's still got the jute. Nothing's torn it up. Headliner. That is another story. Typical 80s GM headliners where, you know, it's fine for a year or two. So this is styrofoam, and the glue they use, I think it's the glue, or maybe it's a backing on the material, or maybe it's both, but it just turns literally to dust. You know, I was thinking about maybe I could salvage this, you know, and keep it because it's the proper shape, but it would take me 100 years to get all this stuff off. I might be able to salvage that. I don't know. Let's move on to something I can actually accomplish. Still no start on the S10. So I bought 3 GM service manuals. Light duty truck, 88 S10 service manual, 88 S10 electrical diagnosis. This one, I found it to be useless, at least for what I need. I don't need to rebuild the engine. So even though this one's S10, it has other truck models in it. This electrical one we'll get into. My first symptom is I don't have the fuel pump coming on. So it says apply fuse 12 volt fuel pump test terminal. Listen for in-tank fuel pump. So it's under the throttle body injection diagram. Here's my fuel pump relay. So I get all what's going on here. So tan white. So now that I know the color of the wire, after looking at the electrical diagram, it's right here. This is my assumption anyway. It's the only one that's hanging here. This is power right here, but I actually just ran a wire right to it from the battery. Pump didn't come on. So these are the 2 relays that matter to me. This is the oil pressure and this is the fuel pump. So I made sure power was coming in and I made sure power was going out where it's supposed to go out. So this test light's grounded to the battery. Now it's on the other side of the connector to the fuel pump. And with the key buzzer going, light comes on, light goes off. That's what it should do. And when you crank it, it'll come back on. So the line to here is fine. So it's definitely something with the pump, but I did want to check it. If you haven't noticed, I bought a new tank, I bought a new sending unit and pump, and the wiring and the filter and everything to go with it. Now the reason why I'm replacing this tank is when they pulled this out of the woods, they damaged the bottom of the tank. So, you know, I'm losing a couple gallons and, you know, I just don't want to deal with it. It could be all rusty in there. This tank was the last one Rock Auto had. It was like 60 bucks. So that's a no-brainer. Kind of guessing at this, but this is my take. So there's a strap that goes under the tank in the back And there's one bolt here, and this strap should just swing down. The front bracket is like self-supporting, and it's at least these two bolts, maybe these two. So we'll take these two off and continue until it comes off. Unplug the wiring harness, undo these hoses, and it should drop out. Hopefully there's not like a ton of gas in it. The longest gas tank holder upper bolt ever. Got the jack under it, got a jack stand under the back. Let's see if this will come off. Not much gas in it, but there we go. This bracket here was grabbing the fuel lines. I hope it didn't damage them. Doesn't feel like it did. They are really cramming some stuff in here. Okay, it's out. There's a lot of filth. Let me get this truck up a little higher and I'll get it out and get it out of the garage because it stinks. The one spot in the floor that's rotted through, the tank comes right up to it. So before I do that, which was the entire goal, at least this time around, I'm going to address this. So there's a plate underneath that's spot welded in two spots. So I'm just going to drill out these two spot welds, fix the floor, then reattach this from below, and boom, that's solved. And I can put the tank in and I can move on with my life and hopefully get this thing closer to running. Okay, I can clean that up, reuse it. The reason I didn't cut this out first is I want to make a pattern so I know where these holes are so I can locate the seat. So when I make a patch, especially a small one, I'll lay down some clear packing tape. So I drew the size and then I drill out the holes on the corners since it's easier to weld on a corner, and then I'll just mark the holes with this marker that barely works. And then what I do is I take an X-Acto knife or blade and just cut away what I don't need. So I'll just tape this onto here, cut it out, drill the holes. Perfect match. After I cut this out, I went back, put the piece of tape on it, make sure everything lines up. And this is what I ended up with. It actually fits really well. There's a tiny bit of overlap on this side, but I'm okay with that. Kind of holds it in place. I'll peel this off and burn this in. Because I'm terrible at this, I'll take a light on the other side and you can see where I didn't get. I'll mark them with a marker and then hit them again. And that's how you put in a gas tank. A couple things. This shield, it's plastic, goes on the front of the tank here. And I actually had dropped something in between the bed and the cab, and it went down in between here. And then when I pulled this off, it was literally full of just garbage, and someone filled it with grease too. There was literally like grease in here. So I drilled 2 holes, you know, so in case water gets in there, it comes out, because when this is on the tank, this is higher than this side. It just doesn't let anything out, so all this stuff was in here. And these 2 slots were already there. They're for the edges of the tank. And of course there's the felt. So the felt goes on the top and bottom on each side, and the straps go over it. I don't have any felt. Usually I just use like roofing felt. You can buy this from LMC and they just send you a big sheet of felt. So I don't see the purpose in that. And I'm not buying a whole roll of it. But I do have this tape. You know, it's for windows and doors, waterproof. I think I'm going to use this instead. I have it, so that's how I'm going to do that. I'm going to put 2 pieces on just to get the thickness up there. Just repeat that 4 times and Call it done. Well, that makes sense. Having something where the water can actually drain out. I might take some of this tar tape stuff and actually cover this up, because this is how all that stuff's getting in there, and that's where my little screwdriver fell down through. So I don't think I can keep everything out of here, but if I put something here, at least I can keep like the large garbage out, which is what gets stuck in there and keeps the water in there. All right, let's see what inside this tank looks like, and more importantly, if I got the right sending unit. That's a little rusty. That is pretty crusty. Okay, so that's got like a plastic baffle in it. Yeah, the sides of the tank are all rusty, crusty. The inlet tube's all rusty. Yeah, the new one has a baffle in it, but it's not plastic. A little bathtub in there. So that looks pretty identical. There are some differences. This is a little lower. The float's a little different. That is definitely correct. Kind of like how this one, the ground comes in, the ground's on the inside, so it can't get all mucked up. I'm going through the parts to put this together, so you get some duplicates between the fuel pump and the sending unit. So then I started looking at the fuel hose, and I wanted to use this one because I need the extra length, and then I remembered that when I put this Barracuda together with the fuel injection, I had an issue with fuel pressure. It could not keep fuel pressure. So it would be good for a week or two, and then it would just not have any fuel pressure and the car wouldn't move anywhere. So Phytech actually sent me, I think, 3 different fuel pumps, and then they wanted to send me to send the ECM back, and I'm like, it's got to be something else. So come to find out, first thing was the fuel pump wasn't theirs. They got it from a different supplier. I think now they supply their own fuel pump, but they'd send you a regular hose, and as this sits in gas, it expands and it turns to like mush, and then you lose the seal, and then you have no fuel pressure. The other option is actual fuel injection hose, but this has the same problem. I mean, this will hold the pressure, but it turns to mush. So this was my solution. It's called Cooper Standard. It's actually Cooper Standard PA12. If you look that up online, you'll find it. It's specifically designed for fuel injection to sit inside the tank, and it doesn't turn to mush. I've had this thing going for a number of years and haven't had a problem since. And here's a perfect example of what happens to the hose. I mean, this thing is mush. I know it's old, I know it's been sitting for 30 years, but this is exactly what happens. It turns to mush, and then you have no fuel pressure because it becomes loose. So I'm going to assemble this, probably with smaller clamps, and we'll take it from there. So this is all assembled. That hose, it doesn't need a clamp. I mean, I had to put some WD-40 in it to get it on, and it's not going anywhere. After I pop this in, I will, of course, hook up the fuel lines, put some fuel in it, test it, test the flow, and I'm not putting this bed on until I know that this gas gauge works 100%. Okay, let's try that again, this time with the lock ring and gasket. So I got my assortment of hoses, and I bought this. I gotta cut it down, and then the breather tube. Yeah, you can't get this. You can get it from LMC, although they're probably the only ones who have this hose, but there's nothing really wrong with it, and it's just a vent tube. So I'll cut these to fit, put some fuel in it, and let's see if the pump works. Pulled the throttle body injectors. This one was leaking gas out of it. This one is completely rusted, like top to bottom, inside out. So I got a kit, and I'm gonna rebuild this throttle body. I also got a new fuel filter. Of course, the return and the feed line are molded to shape. So that's the new rubber return line there with the white on it. So that's gonna need some zip ties. The hex of the fuel filter fits in a bracket that's behind the power steering pump, which makes it really great to access. And it also has a hex in it, so It's really fun to get that in and out. And of course it's clamped. It's not just, doesn't just sit there, it clamps in. Okay, here we go. What I do, I blew out the fuel lines. I got new rubber hoses, rebuilt the throttle body, new cap, rotor, plugs, plug wires, new gas tank, new fuel pump, new sending unit. Let's see if it starts. Right? Nothing else to do, right? So I definitely have oil pressure, even though the gauge is pinned right from when you turn the key on. I saw oil coming up inside the valve cover. It ran really well, started right up. The one casualty was the heater core. So this little truck runs, and I am thrilled. I'm so stoked about it. I told the kid, she's thrilled. She can't wait to drive it. I got some parts ready to throw at this to get it drivable and roadworthy. And that's what we'll pick it up on the next one. So that'll end it for this one. Thanks so much for watching. Here's a little more of what the aftermath was. Not a lot. A little bit of rust came out of the exhaust. Overall, the exhaust is not rusty.
Yeah, it smells fabulous. Okay, cut.